This billionaire spoke down to a waitress in Arabic. She replied fluently and publicly. Before we start the story, leave a comment telling us which city you're watching from. Enjoy the story. The late afternoon sun filtered through the tall windows of ember and oak, casting golden rays across marble floors and white linen tables. The restaurant thrived on elegance. Muted jazz in the background, polished cutlery gleaming under crystal chandeliers, and servers who moved like they were born to blend into the room. Maya Ellison wasn't one of those servers. She never blended. At 29, she carried herself with the calm poise of someone who had seen too much to be shaken by rudeness. Her uniform was spotless, her smile polite but never forced. She didn't need validation. She needed peace. But peace rarely lasted long in restaurants like this. Her eyes drifted to the newly seated guest at the corner table. Table 19, always reserved for someone important. He sat alone for now, dressed in a flowing black bisht with intricate gold trim. The man's presence drew glances from nearby tables. A red and white keffiyeh framed his sharp face. A gold pen rested next to his phone, and beside it, a reservation card bearing his name in thick ink. Mr. Salim Haddad. Maya approached with the practiced steps of someone who'd walked 100 tightropes. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to Ember and Oak. May I recommend our chef special today? Roasted duck with saffron couscous and apricot glaze. Salim didn't look up. He continued checking his messages. After an agonizing pause, he finally muttered, "Fine, the duck. And make sure the couscous isn't dry. I'm not here to eat American mistakes." His accent was strong, but not difficult to follow. Maya wrote the order down, keeping her face neutral. "Of course, sir. Right away." She turned to leave, and that's when she heard it. He had leaned slightly toward his newly arrived guest, a young man in a navy suit, and muttered something in Arabic, low but not low enough. "She's one of those maids who thinks she's a princess." A soft, dismissive chuckle followed. His companion gave an awkward smile, unsure how to respond. Maya's back stiffened, but she didn't pause. She kept walking, every step as smooth as before. But inside her, something turned. He thinks I didn't understand. But Maya Ellison had grown up in Marrakesh, raised by a grandmother who only spoke Arabic. And this man had no idea just how loudly his words were about to echo. Back behind the bar, Maya stood in front of the kitchen order screen, her eyes fixed on the blinking cursor as the sound of sizzling oil and clanking pans surrounded her. "Duck, saffron couscous, apricot glaze," she murmured as she keyed in the order. She tapped send, then leaned her palms onto the counter, exhaling slowly. Not because she was tired, but because she was angry. Not loud, boiling anger. No, this was quiet, controlled, focused. "Everything all right?" asked Brandon, one of the other servers. Tall, sharp-featured, always quick with sarcasm, but he knew Maya's tells. She gave him a half-smile. "Fine. Just the usual. VIP table?" She nodded. Brandon made a face. "They always think they're gods." Maya didn't respond. She didn't want to explain that Salim hadn't just treated her like she was invisible. He'd called her a maid, a servant who thought she was a princess. He had said it in the same tone someone might use to talk about dirt on their shoe. Worse than that, he was confident she wouldn't understand. But she had. Arabic wasn't just a language to Maya. It was her inheritance. Her grandmother had spoken it with reverence, had passed it down with bedtime stories, ancient proverbs, and songs that Maya still remembered in her dreams. And now this man had tried to weaponize it against her. As she passed through the dining area again, she caught a glance of Salim. He was laughing softly with his assistant, a glass of sparkling water in hand. His voice flowed effortlessly, his expression smug, like he owned the room, like no one mattered but him. Maya slowed her pace just a little, long enough to hear him mutter something else. "Funny how they keep smiling, like they don't know they have no dignity." Her hand tightened around the edge of her tray. This wasn't about food, or even customer service. It was about power, about the kind of man who saw uniforms and thought servants. about someone who mistook silence for ignorance and politeness for submission. But Salim had made one mistake too many. The kitchen bell rang, sharp and high. A plate was slid onto the pass. Perfectly roasted duck, golden and crisp, perched beside vibrant saffron couscous dotted with apricots and pistachios. A drizzle of dark glaze shimmered on the rim of the porcelain plate. "Duck's up for table 19, called the chef. Maya was already there. She balanced the plate with practiced ease, her free hand smoothing her apron. Her posture was perfect, her walk composed. But beneath the surface, her thoughts were no longer quiet. Salim had called her a maid. Not to her face, of course. That would have taken a kind of honesty men like him never needed. No, he used his language like a curtain, something to hide behind while throwing stones. She stepped out into the dining room. As she neared the corner table, the atmosphere subtly shifted. Not dramatically, just enough to be felt. The assistant looked up from his phone and straightened, catching her approach. Salim didn't notice. He was mid-sentence. "And I told them, if you can't meet my terms, there's no deal. I don't waste my time negotiating with amateurs." He glanced up as Maya arrived and pulled back just enough for her to set the plate down. "Your duck, sir," she said with a gentle, practiced tone. Salim didn't say thank you. Instead, he stared at the food like he was already disappointed. "You remembered to tell the kitchen not to dry the couscous?" he asked, eyebrow raised. "I did," Maya replied calmly. He cut into the duck, examined the inside, then muttered in Arabic, not bothering to look at her. If only she were as pretty as she is precise. It wasn't just offensive, it was calculated. Maya stood still for a breath. Her fingers twitched at her side. Her smile didn't move. But in that instant, something changed. Not in him, he was still lost in his own reflection. In her. Because it was no longer about what he was saying. It was about what she was going to do. She turned to the assistant. "Would you care for anything else, sir?" she asked, her voice perfectly pleasant. He glanced at her, startled, then nodded quickly. "Just a coffee. Thank you." Maya gave a small smile, then turned away. But she knew. Maya stood at the espresso machine, hands moving on autopilot. Steam hissed, milk frothed. The bitter scent of dark roast filled the air. But her thoughts were nowhere near the cup in front of her. They were back at table 19. She could still hear his voice, still feel the way his words slithered across her skin. If only she were as pretty as she is precise. Not the worst she'd heard, no, not even close. But the way he said it offhand with that dry smirk, like he was complimenting a well-trained dog, was what got to her. And in his native tongue, of course. Like that gave him a shield. But what he didn't know, what none of them knew yet, was that Maya had torn that shield down the moment he opened his mouth. She placed the finished coffee on a tray and straightened. As she turned, she found Julian Marks, the manager, watching her from across the bar. Salt and pepper hair, dark vest, sleeves rolled up just enough to show he'd worked every position in the building before becoming the one who ran it. "You good?" he asked quietly, stepping closer. "Just tired," she said, forcing a smile. Julian narrowed his eyes slightly. "Table 19? She didn't answer. Julian didn't push. He'd been in this business long enough to know when a server was holding something in. He gave a simple nod. "Let me know if it crosses the line." Maya appreciated that, his silence, his watchfulness. Julian had a way of stepping in only when it mattered. And that time might be coming sooner than he expected. As she moved back onto the floor, tray in hand, she caught snippets of hushed conversation at other tables. Her sharp ears picked up fragments. Someone had heard the tone at table 19. Someone else had seen the way Salim looked at her, talked over her. A few customers glanced up as she passed, their expressions curious, even concerned. People were starting to feel it, that something wasn't right, that beneath the polished veneer of ember and oak, a storm was brewing quietly in the corner. And Maya? She wasn't going to stop it. She was going to guide it. When Maya returned to table 19 with the coffee, the air around the corner felt heavier. Subtle, unspoken, but waited all the same. The assistant, Adam, she'd overheard his name, offered her a soft smile as she set the coffee down. "Thank you," he said quietly. She noticed the way his eyes avoided his boss, like he knew something was off. Maya gave a polite nod and turned to Salim. He didn't look up. He swirled the glaze on his plate with his fork, then said, in Arabic, without missing a beat, "Even the coffee feels dumber now." The comment wasn't directed at the drink. Maya's smile didn't falter, but it would be her last. She'd given this man every courtesy, every professional buffer, and he'd used everyone to throw jabs behind a curtain of language he assumed was his alone. No more. She straightened her shoulders and said, clearly, calmly, and in flawless Arabic, "Shall I bring dessert now, or are you too full of your own ego to enjoy it?" Salim froze. The fork in his hand paused mid-motion. His eyes slowly rose to meet hers. For the first time since he'd entered the restaurant, his expression showed something other than smugness. Surprise. Adam blinked, mouth slightly open. He looked from Maya to Salim, trying to confirm what he just heard. Salim's face twitched, confusion, then discomfort. "You speak Arabic?" he asked in English, the accent heavier now, less certain. "Fluently," Maya replied, and just like that, the balance shifted. The silence around the table was loud. Salim leaned back, his hand gripping the arm of his chair like it would anchor him. He glanced at Adam, but the young assistant looked away, clearly rattled. "I see," Salim said finally, his voice tighter now. "How unexpected." "I imagine it is," Maya replied. Her voice wasn't loud, but the tone carried. A few nearby diners looked up. Others leaned subtly toward the table. The room had begun to turn, not into chaos but into awareness. "Most people don't understand what I say," Salim said, switching back to Arabic slower now. "It's rare. Or maybe," Maya answered also in Arabic, "they understand perfectly and just decide you're not worth responding to." His eyes narrowed, the charm fading quickly. "You're a server," he said. "And you're a guest," she replied. "But only one of us is behaving like one." Adam opened his mouth as if to speak, then stopped. He looked down at his hands. Even he knew it, this wasn't a conversation anymore. It was a reckoning. Salim tried to recover. "You're overreacting. A few words." "No." Maya cut in, still in Arabic. "It was how you said them, who you said them to, and why." Around the room, forks had stilled. No one was eating. Conversations had dimmed. No one fully understood the words, but the tension, that needed no translation. "You thought I was invisible," Maya continued. "But now that I've spoken, you don't know what to do." And he didn't. Salim's smirk returned. But it was forced. "You think this matters?" he said. "That your little moment means something? I fly home in 3 days. I'll forget this place by the weekend." Maya stepped back, folding her arms. "Maybe," she said, "but I promise you, you'll remember me." There was no malice in her tone, just quiet certainty, the kind that made people listen. Across the restaurant, the manager Julian had stepped closer, watching the exchange carefully but not yet intervening. Adam cleared his throat. "Maybe we should finish the meal, Salim." Salim ignored him. "Do you think this makes you my equal?" he asked Maya. "No," she replied. "I never needed to be your equal. Just needed you to know you're not better." A gasp echoed from a nearby table. For the first time in a very long time, Salim Haddad looked like he wanted to disappear. Julian finally approached. "Everything all right here?" he asked, voice low but firm. Salim straightened. "No. Your server here decided to publicly insult me in the middle of a meal." Julian raised an eyebrow, glancing at Maya. "She responded to what you've been saying since you sat down," Julian said calmly. "And I've been listening." That stopped Salim cold. Julian turned to Maya. "You all right?" Maya nodded once. "Yes, just done smiling at insults." Julian's expression didn't change, but the nod he gave her wasn't just managerial. It was personal, supportive. Salim turned back to his plate. This is ridiculous. You're welcome to stay and finish your meal, Julian said, quietly. But this ends now. Salim said nothing. He picked up his fork again, but it trembled slightly. The room was still watching. The Titan had slipped, and Maya was still standing. Salim barely touched the rest of his duck. Adam ate in silence, his appetite clearly gone. The quiet around table 19 had become deafening. Maya moved between tables, calm, composed, but aware of every glance that followed her. Customers who'd never spoken to her now nodded when she passed. Others simply looked. Guiltily, respectfully, awestruck. When she returned to clear the plates, Salim didn't speak. But he reached into his jacket and pulled out his wallet. Several crisp bills were placed on the tray, hundreds at least. A peace offering? A bribe? A coward's apology? Maya looked at the money, then looked at him. Respect, she said evenly, matters more than tips. And with that she walked away. The door closed behind Salim and Adam. Their exit was silent, except for the hush that followed in their wake. It wasn't triumph Maya felt. It was release. Julian came up beside her near the server station. You want a break? He asked. She shook her head. I'm okay. He nodded slowly. You handled that better than most. I didn't do it for applause, she said. I know, Julian said. That's what makes it powerful. A woman at table 7 caught Maya's eye and mouthed, Thank you. Maya smiled gently, not because she'd won, but because she'd spoken. And for once, the room had listened. By the time the dinner rush ended, the entire staff at Ember and Oak knew what had happened. They didn't say it outright, but the glances, the half-smiles, the subtle nods in Maya's direction said enough. Even the dishwasher had caught wind of it. He thought she couldn't understand him. She hit him with fluent Arabic, right at the table. Didn't even raise her voice, just ended him. Brandon walked past Maya in the hallway and clapped a hand gently on her shoulder. You're officially a legend now. She rolled her eyes. I didn't do it for that. I know. That's why it's legendary. In truth, Maya didn't feel like a hero. The moment had been real, vulnerable, tense, and painful. She'd spoken because she couldn't not speak. Because staying quiet meant agreeing with everything Salim had said. But now others were treating her like she'd performed a show, and that made her uneasy. After her shift, she sat alone in the break room, staring at her reflection in the glass door of the vending machine. She could still hear her grandmother's voice. When someone shows you who they are with words, believe them, but don't let their tongue cut your soul. She had protected her soul. But now came the harder part. What would she do with the spotlight? The next morning, Maya arrived early, before the doors opened, before the linen carts were wheeled in. Julian was already at his office desk, typing up the previous night's shift notes when he looked up and gestured for her to come in. You're all over the group chat, he said, closing his laptop. Servers from the downtown location heard about it already. Maya sighed. Great. Julian studied her. I mean this with full respect. You want me to shut it down? She blinked. Shut what down? The gossip, the attention. I can make it clear that it ends here. Maya shook her head slowly. No, let them talk. But I'm not looking for applause. I just want to work. Julian nodded. Fair. But Maya. The owner heard about it too. That made her pause. Mr. Dorsey? He's flying in next week. Wants to talk. Maya felt her stomach tighten. She wasn't sure if that was good or bad. Maybe neither. Julian caught the look and leaned forward. You didn't do anything wrong, he said. And no matter what he says, remember that. Salim Haddad sat alone in the back of a black SUV, Charleston's sun flaring in the windshield as they passed the city's historic district. Adam sat beside him, scrolling silently through his phone. Do you think she'll tell people? Salim asked, voice tight. Adam looked up. People already know. Salim's jaw clenched. I meant outside the restaurant. The media. Online. I don't think she's that type, Adam said. She didn't humiliate you. You did that yourself. Silence. Then, I tipped her well. Adam turned to face him. That wasn't an apology, Salim. I don't apologize to servers. That's the problem, Adam muttered, looking back at the window. Salim didn't answer, but he suddenly realized, for the first time in years, that someone on his own team wasn't looking at him with admiration. They were looking at him with disappointment. That night, Maya pulled out the old wooden box from under her bed. It had been years since she'd opened it. Inside were faded photographs, prayer beads, a folded scarf that still smelled faintly of mint and rosewater, and nestled in the corner a letter, handwritten in careful Arabic script. From her grandmother. Maya read it slowly, like she always did. One line stood out more than ever now. To speak your truth is not to be rude. It is to be free. She folded the letter carefully, held it to her chest, and let herself remember. The sun-washed alleyways of Marrakesh, the smell of street bread, the soft hum of her grandmother reciting poetry in the evenings. She hadn't just spoken Arabic at that table. She had spoken from her roots. And now she understood something more. This wasn't just about one man. It was about all the others who'd underestimated her voice. The next evening, Ember and Oak was buzzing with reservation calls. Not because of a promotion, not because of the duck special. Because people had heard. An anonymous post had made it onto a local food blog. A billionaire tried to humiliate a waitress in Arabic. She answered in perfect Arabic and put him in his place. The restaurant didn't clap. It went silent. That's the kind of woman you remember. No names, no photos, but the post had gone viral. Customers who had never booked suddenly wanted a table. Is the woman from the post working tonight? They asked on the phone. Julian was annoyed. Maya was exhausted. I didn't want this, she muttered. I know, Julian said, but maybe someone else out there needs it. Needs to hear that speaking up is worth it. Maya looked out at the tables filling fast. She hadn't meant to start anything, but maybe it was time she stopped hiding from it. The following week, Robert Dorsey, owner of Ember and Oak and 3 other high-end restaurants across the East Coast, walked through the front doors like he owned the oxygen in the room. Because, in a way, he did. Gray suit, silver tie, understated gold cufflinks. His presence was quiet but unmistakably dominant. He didn't bark orders. He expected things to happen before he had to speak. Julian greeted him at the door with a handshake and a calm smile. Thanks for coming in, sir. I don't usually fly out for local drama, Robert said, looking around the space. But the phone hasn't stopped ringing. And a single server now has more social traction than our entire marketing team. That's noteworthy. Julian simply nodded toward the back hallway. Robert stepped into the staff room a few minutes later. Maya stood, straight-backed, waiting. She wore her uniform like armor. Maya Ellison, Robert said. I assume you know why I'm here. I do. He gestured to the seat across from her. I've heard versions, he said. But I want yours. Maya didn't hesitate. She told him everything. Not just the comments, but the language they came in. The intention behind them. The years of similar encounters that made this one the breaking point. Robert didn't interrupt once. When she finished, he folded his hands and nodded slowly. You embarrassed a billionaire in front of a room full of diners, he said. I defended myself. You did. He paused. And people seemed to love you for it. Robert leaned back in his chair, expression unreadable. I won't pretend I'm not concerned, he said. Public attention comes with scrutiny, and scrutiny invites risk. Maya waited. But, he continued, this place has never had a soul. It's always had polish, prestige, but never humanity. You gave it that, and I think people are responding to it. She blinked. I'm not sure what that means. It means, Robert said, I want you to help lead something new. He pulled a folder from his briefcase and slid it across the table. Inside was a proposal. Her name was at the top. A new concept. A smaller restaurant. Maya as co-creator. A modern fusion of North African, Southern, and Middle Eastern flavors. "You've been at the front of the house long enough," he said. "Time to step into the kitchen. Into ownership." Maya stared at the folder, heart thundering. She had come in that morning expecting lectures or legal talk. She was not expecting a seat at the table. That night, Maya sat on her porch steps, proposal folder in her lap, staring out at the quiet Charleston streets. She hadn't called anyone. Not Brandon. Not her sister. Not even Julian. Part of her was excited. The other part? Terrified. Because the truth was, for all her composure and calm confidence, she had never dreamed this big. Her life had always been about survival, not legacy. A part of her whispered, "What if you're not ready?" She opened the folder again, studying the sketches. The concept, the vision, it didn't just include her, it depended on her. Another part of her whispered something else. "This is what your grandmother raised you for." She remembered those early mornings in Marrakesh, helping roll out dough in the tiny kitchen, listening to stories told through steam and saffron. Maybe this wasn't ambition. Maybe it was continuation. 2 days later, Maya got an unexpected call. Unknown number. International code. She hesitated, then answered. It was Adam Salim's assistant. "Maya," he said, "I hope I'm not overstepping." She was quiet. "You're not. I just wanted to say, what you did, you changed something. Maybe not in Salim, but in me. I grew up thinking power meant silence. That if someone talked down to you, you smiled and let it slide. You didn't do that." Maya didn't know what to say. "There's one more thing," Adam continued. "He's going back to Doha tomorrow. But he asked me to tell you something." Maya frowned. Why not call himself? "Because he still doesn't know how to face people. But he told me to say this, he was wrong. And he knows it." There was a pause. "That may not mean much," Adam added. "But it's more than I ever expected from him." Maya nodded slowly. "It means enough." Maya stood in the kitchen of ember and oak, staring at an empty prep table, the proposal folder tucked under her arm. Across the stainless steel surface lay scattered ingredients from that evening's shift. Lemons, couscous, fresh rosemary, and a bowl of pickled carrots she hadn't seen before. Julian walked in behind her. "You've made a decision, haven't you?" he asked. "I have," she said. She set the folder down. "I'm going to do it. The new place. The fusion concept." Julian grinned. "I figured." She looked at him, her voice calm but certain. "But I don't want to build a place that only the rich walk into. I want everyone to feel like they belong. No smirks. No silence. Just respect, food, and stories that matter." Julian clapped her on the back. "Then let's build that restaurant." Maya smiled. It was time to step forward, not just for herself, but for every voice that had ever been dismissed. The building was still empty, just concrete floors, sunlight bleeding through dusty windows, and the faint scent of old paint. Maya stood in the middle of it, arms crossed, a tape measure in her back pocket. This was it. The future restaurant. Her name wouldn't be on the sign, not yet, but her fingerprints would be on everything from the tile to the taste. "It's got bones," said Luis, the contractor Julian had recommended. He walked in behind her, boots scuffing across the floor. Not pretty bones yet, but bones. Maya turned in a slow circle, trying to see beyond the dust and echo. She imagined lantern-style lighting, warm wood tones, hand-woven fabrics lining the booths. She pictured the aroma of harissa-glazed wings mixing with smoked brisket. She could almost hear laughter over dinner, the kitchen staff humming along to soft music in the back. "Let's make it beautiful," she said. Luis nodded. "We'll need permits. And patience. I've got both. Sort of." The first sign of resistance came from where Maya least expected it, inside the company. 2 days later, she met with one of Robert Dorsey's regional managers, a sharp woman named Caitlin Roy, who had been overseeing several new restaurant expansions. "Fusion's always risky," Caitlin said, sipping her coffee. "Especially this particular blend. North African and Southern. That's niche." Maya kept her expression even. "It's not niche. It's heritage." And Charleston is ready for something honest. Caitlin shrugged. Look, I respect what you did. It was brave. But going viral doesn't automatically translate to long-term success. Maya's jaw tightened. I'm not here because of a viral moment. No, Caitlin smirked. Because from what I've seen, this entire concept was born from a conflict. Maya stood. This restaurant isn't born from conflict, she said. It's born from identity. You don't have to believe in it. I just need you not to stand in the way. As she left the office, her hands trembled, but her feet, steady as stone. Back at the site, Maya spread blueprints across the folding table Luis had set up. Julian stood beside her, sleeves rolled, scanning the page. You really putting the kitchen at the front? He asked. Yep, that's bold. Maya smiled. Exactly. She tapped the plan. Open kitchen, no division. People will see their food being made. And the people making it. No one hidden. Julian leaned closer. Even the dish pit? Especially the dish pit. He gave her a look. You're gonna turn the back of house into the front of house. I'm going to turn everyone into part of the story. It wasn't just about food. It was about visibility. Language, respect, and roots. All served on ceramic plates. Maya didn't want a restaurant where guests sat behind velvet ropes. She wanted a table big enough for everyone to be seen. It happened late one evening, about 2 weeks into renovations. Maya had stayed behind, sketching menu ideas on a legal pad when Luis knocked on the doorframe, holding his phone. You're gonna want to see this. A headline glared across the screen. Billionaire speaks out. I was set up to fail by a waitress playing politics. Salim. Maya read the quote 3 times. She knew what she was doing. She embarrassed me to elevate herself. That's not integrity. That's manipulation. Beneath it, comments flooded in. Some supportive, some brutal. Typical. She's not even a chef. She just wants fame. She deserves better. Open the restaurant. We're coming opening night. Maya set the phone down carefully. Her past had come knocking again. Only this time, it was dressed in deflection and ego. But it didn't rattle her. It reminded her why this mattered. Let him talk. She had work to do. A week later, Maya stood in front of the first painted wall inside the new space. She held a small framed photo, black and white, edges worn. Her grandmother, young and strong, smiling outside a Moroccan bakery. Maya placed it on the shelf, above eye level but not hidden. Around the room she began to hang more. Photos of hands kneading dough, slicing herbs, pouring tea. Names of every team member who would join the opening crew. A handwritten menu in both English and Arabic. This wouldn't be a restaurant that erased anyone. It would be a place where people brought their whole selves in language, culture, story, and left full in more ways than one. Brandon walked in, carrying a roll of linen napkins. He saw the photos and stopped. This place, it's not like the others, he said. Maya smiled. That's the point. The soft glow of lanterns lit the sidewalk outside the restaurant. A hand-painted sign above the door read, Sanaa, Arabic for art, craft, and brightness. A line of curious diners stretched down the block. Inside, everything was ready. The open kitchen gleamed. Servers wore linen aprons and warm smiles. The walls whispered stories, photos, phrases, and stitched proverbs from 2 continents. And at the center of it all, Maya stood by the host's stand, hands folded, heart pounding. You did it, Julian said quietly behind her. No, Maya replied. We did. At exactly 6 o'clock, the doors opened. The first guest stepped in. A pair of women, one black, one Middle Eastern, both with curious smiles. Maya welcomed them herself. Table for 2, she said. Right this way. As they walked past the kitchen, one paused. That's harira on the menu? With a Carolina twist, Maya said. The woman grinned. Finally, someone's blending the world right. The energy in the room was electric. Not loud but alive. A father taught his daughter how to eat dates without the pit. A young couple clinked glasses over a plate of lamb ribs. In the corner, a woman held her phone up to photograph the open kitchen. Maya visible in the background, plating a dish beside her chef. No barriers, no secrets, just food, stories, and people. At one point, Maya stepped outside for air. She leaned against the brick wall, letting the hum of joy drift out behind her. She didn't hear someone approach. "Quite the place you've built," came a quiet voice. She turned. Adam, wearing a plain blazer. Alone. Maya didn't speak. She waited. He held something out, a sealed envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "A letter," Adam said. "From Salim." She didn't reach for it. Adam lowered his hand. "He's not asking for sympathy," he said. "But he regrets what he said, what he believed. He just didn't know how to tell the truth in public." "I never needed an apology," Maya said softly. "I think he did." Later that night, long after the last guest had left, Maya sat alone in her office. The letter lay unopened on the desk. She stared at it for a long time, then slowly broke the seal. It wasn't long. "Maya, I won't pretend to understand everything. But I understand this: I was wrong. About you. About what it means to lead with silence. Your voice that day. It did something no one in my world ever dared. You reminded me I am not above truth. This will never go public. But I wanted you to know that I am listening now. Even if I was too late. Salim." She folded the letter, placed it in the box with her grandmother's scarf, and closed it gently. Forgiveness wasn't owed. But understanding, that was enough. Months passed. Sanaa thrived. Reviews praised it for flavor with identity, a menu with memory, hospitality with soul. But Maya didn't care about stars or headlines. She cared about the handwritten thank you notes. About the little girl who came in every Sunday, ordering the same dish her mother once made her in Rabat. About the dishwasher who got promoted to prep cook and now taught others with pride in his hands. One night, after a particularly busy service, Julian approached her with a glass of mint tea. "You ever think about what would have happened if you'd stayed silent that day?" he asked. Maya smiled. "All the time. And I wouldn't have found my voice." Julian lifted his glass. "To words that matter." She raised hers. "And to people who listen." The restaurant was quiet now. Chairs up, lights dimmed, floors clean. Maya walked through the dining room slowly, fingers brushing each table like a ritual. She paused at table 19. They had saved the number, not as a reminder of arrogance, but of awakening, of the moment silence was broken and respect stepped in. She placed a single candle on the table, lit it, watched it flicker. The world hadn't changed overnight, but this place? It had been changed forever, not by a confrontation, but by a woman who had the courage to answer disrespect not with rage, but with language, grace, and truth. Maya turned off the last light, locked the door, and stepped into the Charleston night with her head held high, her past behind her, her roots below her, and her future burning like a candle that refused to go out. The lesson: respect is not a privilege reserved for the wealthy or the loud. It is a right owed to everyone, regardless of title, accent, or uniform. Never assume someone's silence is ignorance. Never underestimate someone because of where they stand. And never forget, dignity isn't earned through money or power. It's earned through how we treat people when we think no one is watching.